Tonight on Chronicle. Challenging the boundaries of traditional music.
The kind of reaction that I like best is when I hear people sort of giggle because I just did something that just made them just scratch their head like, what the heck did he just do?
Tuning in to the experimental instruments of Dave Kontak.
Well, this is an amplified picture frame. I like to take over-the-counter objects and manipulate them and work with them. And I'll just be walking down the street and I'll hear a sound and I'll think, how can I make that sound?
Part attorney, part auteur. How Dover filmmaker Freddie Catalfo's latest short film connects Custer's Last Stand to the Super Bowl.
It's a quirky story about the fact that Adam Vinatieri, the former kicker for the Patriots who won the Super Bowl for them, his great-great-grandfather Felix Vinatieri was an Italian immigrant who was General Custer's band leader.
Is that true?
That's absolutely true.
Plus, Fritz Weatherby's New Hampshire.
This town, Chester, used to be huge. Huge! I'll tell you the story.
That's next on Chronicle.
Do you want a pet that won't wake you up with its barking, doesn't need daily walks, and can go for more than a week or more without being fed?
No, I'm good, thanks. I'm more of a Gryffindor than a Slytherin type, I'll tell you that.
Well, snakes are private, quiet types who just want a cool, shady place to call home, as they are happy to show you at the New England Reptile Distributors in Plastow.
Yeah, I'm hanging out right here near the door. From the tip of their forked tongues to the rattlers on certain tails, I'll tell you.
And right now I'm trying to hold a Burmese python. Now this is a female and she's probably about 16 feet and weighs about 125 pounds and she's kind of heavy. It's a lot of snake, but she's very friendly.
A beautiful thing. I'm glad she's with you. And in a rapid change of subject, you know, we all know someone who plays the guitar or the piano, but there is a Concord man who is creating and playing musical instruments that I can bet you've never heard of before.
David Kontak has always had a love for music, and that's one of the reasons he's turned his creative energy into making one-of-a-kind musical instruments that you will have to see and hear to believe.
And I'm catching you later.
I start with a sound in mind, and then I build pieces around that. I like the droney, complex sound. It can be kind of soothing, and what I like to have is the sense that there's a really big droning sound, but inside that you can hear details that are really interesting, little high-frequency things. So within this big bed of sound, there's all this detail that can be brought out that really makes it interesting. By definition, anybody who makes music or organized sound is a musician. So I certainly would call myself that. Certainly I have invented things, so by definition I'm an inventor. And I have training in visual art and I make things that hopefully look interesting. Well, this is an instrument that has those giggle sticks, those things you turn upside down and they make funny sounds. There's 2 of them in each of these tubes. And by connecting them via these wires, when you swing one of them, it causes the other ones to move also. And a whole series of sonic events gets put into motion that sounds almost like an alien speaking or something. So it's using an everyday object, but in sort of a strange new way. The kind of reaction that I like best is when I hear people sort of giggle because I just did something that just made them just scratch their head like, what the heck did he just do? I like to get away from playing traditional looking instruments because when I go up in a public performance and I'm holding this thing that looks like a piece of exercise equipment or something like that, the audience is going to give me some slack. They're going to say, okay, well, I know we're not going to hear My Funny Valentine or something like that. I'm going to hear something unusual. And I like that. I think that I come from music way more from a perspective of someone who's interested in sound, not so much interested in traditional melody, harmony, rhythm, the way someone like who studied Johann Sebastian Bach. Well, I make some conventional instruments. Conventional instruments sound conventional and they're played in a conventional manner, but hopefully they're improved because their design makes them balance and more comfortable to play them. But there's also an element of me that tries to invent musical instruments that use sort of low-level science, just the mechanics, electric motors, things like that, to create unusual sounds and appealing sounds, things that a regular human couldn't make. Kind of like Jackson Pollock, you know, he wanted to take his hand away from the action of making brush strokes, so he just flung it in the air to see what would happen. In a lot of ways, that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm turning over some of my the hand gestures of music, like the strumming and the plucking, turning that over to mechanical devices, but making them imperfect, so they come up with unusual combinations of sound. Well, this is an amplified picture frame. One reason I think I can get away with playing some very strange and maybe even borderline strident sounds is that I try to present it and then end and not make the audience endure a really lengthy, strange sound. I think that trying to recover your innocence about sounds to where just average, ordinary things sound interesting to you and you're not jaded by, oh, well, that's not music or that wasn't a pitch sound, is a really good thing. I naturally want to move gracefully, I'm not sure, but I like to move around while I play and feel the rhythm and also let the audience members see the relationship between the movements that I make and the sounds that I create. I want there to be a really close tie-in between the movements and the sound. I don't like the dichotomies in my life between high art and supposedly low art or popular culture. I want to try to make something that's really experimental and has the lofty goals of high art, but people have enough fun that they don't even realize I'm trying to make high art. It just seems like really direct, straightforward art. I like to take over-the-counter objects and manipulate them and work with them, and I'm always listening for things around me that sound interesting, and I'll just be walking down the street and I'll hear a sound and I'll think, how can I make that sound? There's one thought that always comes to me, which is that I can't wait for the next thing. You know, when I'm in a car driving or when I'm in the line at a supermarket, I have this place I can go in my mind that says, that next thing, what will it be? And it's going to be awesome, that next thing. It's going to be better than the other things. It's that hope that the creative process is going to continue to yield something better and better if I stick to it.
Coming up, Chestnut Country.
Hello? Coming up next.
Can I help you?
Up next, Bighorn. Well, next, what do General Custer, Adam Vinatieri, and Fritz Weatherby have in common? Well, they're all connected in one way or another to a short movie called Bighorn. It's the latest film created by Freddie Catalfo. The award-winning filmmaker, screenwriter, and director has churned out lots of shorts in the past several years, and it's not even his day job. Jennifer Crompton caught up with him behind the scenes at his law practice in downtown Dover.
The opening scene in The Stag Hunt was shot in a Dover courtroom. A local judge makes a cameo appearance. But it's the guy playing the lawyer whose life most imitates the art happening here.
What are my chances?
50-50.
Alfred Thomas Catalfo, or Freddie to his friends, really is an attorney from Dover who makes films in his spare time. He doesn't just act, he writes, directs, and produces them with energy and imagination to spare. Among his 10 feature screenplays and 4 short films is Bighorn, which he describes as a supernatural historical fantasy connecting Custer to the Super Bowl.
In some ways, it's quirky, and it's a quirky story about the fact that in real life, Adam Vinatieri, the former kicker for the Patriots who won the Super Bowl for them, his great-great-grandfather, Felix Vinatieri, was an Italian immigrant who was General Custer's band leader.
Is that true?
That's absolutely true.
It's also true that he charged into battle with Custer, except at the Battle of Bighorn. So Custer was killed, and Vinatieri survived, and his great-great-grandson would go on to make history. His version involves a Harvard professor and parallel universes. Local actor Mike Walsh plays the lead. He and radio personality Greg Kretschmar are among the many familiar faces in his movies.
Hello?
Including the owner of the curio shop where Felix Vinatieri's cornet is found.
Can I help you?
And suddenly you see Fritz come into view, and we had it in the New Hampshire Film Festival and at the somewhat north of Boston Festival, and of course the minute Fritz comes on screen, the audience never fails to explode.
Fritz played the doomed curator in the 35-minute short The Norman Rockwell Code, too. It's the Da Vinci Code injected with comedy and Americana, set in the Norman Rockwell Museum instead of the Louvre.
So then we've got, I thought you really want to inject Americana.